part 2 of the road to WrestleMania. In this video I'm going to talk about Money in the Bank. Now Money in the Bank this year has had a bit of a weird build up in my opinion. I mean, the qualifying matches have just been so obvious, and a lot of them have like been squashes. The ones that come to mind is Jack Swagger's squash over Zack Ryder, and was it Jack Swagger? No, Jack Swagger squashed Santino Marella, and MVP squashed Zack Ryder. And it's like, there's no way I would have believed them to be in Money in the Bank anyway, but it's like, kind of like, what's the point in having these qualifying matches if you know who's going to be in there? At the moment, like, it just seems, from what I've read online, it seems really up in the air what is happening with Money in the Bank. I mean, is there going to be 8 people or 9 people or 10 people in it? Who knows? I mean, just last week, we heard rumours that it was going to be like a 10th person added on Raw, but that didn't happen. And blatantly, we all thought that 10th person was going to be Kofi Kingston. And I don't know what the fuck's going on with Kofi Kingston right now, to be honest. He doesn't seem to be on the WrestleMania card. And that kind of surprises me, seeing as he's like had such a, like, the beginnings of a like great push to the main event last year, but just like got killed by that feud with Randy Orton when he like didn't really go over once apart from that Survivor Series. So at the moment he's not in this, so I'm ruling him out of here totally. But if he does get added in, then maybe he will have a chance, and that's why he's been like an afterthought so far, because like people will forget about him and then he'd win. But at the moment I'm ruling him out because he's not in it. Now Drew McIntyre, he's like probably the only wrestler that's had a definitive storyline going into this match. And at the moment, if he is still going to be in this and they're not going to like reduce this to like 8 participants, I can totally see the WWE having him win and being pushed, because like this seems to be his goal, like as far as the TV perspective goes. But you know, he's the Intercontinental Champ. It would be nice to see that belt defended on the pay-per-view, but having said that, the card is pretty stacked anyway. There's also like a few that I think could deserve it, and there's a few that I just really can't see winning it. Kane is like been lumped in with this match like a few years now, and I just think he's been put in there for his loyalty to the company to have a WrestleMania payday. I can't see him winning it, but I think like one more like good Kane run would be something a lot of fans would like. And if he was to win it and have that briefcase and be all psychotic with that and have it build up for a while, that could be something interesting, but I don't think it's going to happen. Evan Bourne, there's no way like I see like WWE having any faith in him being a world champion, unfortunately, which is a big shame, because Matt Sydal, as a lot of us know, is an awesome wrestler, but I just don't see WWE ever putting a world title on this guy. I think when he was in ECW, like for his first run there before the injury, he had a good chance of being an ECW champ, but obviously that's disbanded. So yeah, I just think he's literally in there to do some flippy shit and pop the crowd, basically. MVP. Now, I think this could be something beneficial to MVP if he like won it and like basically brought his heel character back. You know, MVP has had like one of the most stop-start pushes for the past 2 years, and it's stupid. I think he should be like wrestling amongst the main event scene in WWE right now, but they just seem to like not like invest in him enough to like show us all belief that he could be a main guy, which is sad. So for that reason, I don't really see him winning it, but I'd quite like to see him win it. Dolph Ziggler and Jack Swagger. I think if they had like any of the kind of momentum they had at certain times last year, I think this would have been great opportunity for them to be pushed into that spot and like go for it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dolph Ziggler. I think he's a great performer, but once again, like the WWE just like give him this kind of push, and then they just like forget about him, which is what happens with so many wrestlers. Same could be said with Jack Swagger, but for some reason, Jack Swagger for the past few months has just like looked like an uncouth ape out there. And for that reason, I can't see him winning it. I can't see either of these guys winning it, which is a shame, because they did have some kind of great momentum behind them at certain points last year that made you think these guys are future main eventers. But who knows, they may pull the trigger on them for this, or maybe some point this year. Shelton Benjamin, well, I think if there's like anyone deserving of some sort of push or win in this, it's him. He's been like the wrestler of Money in the Bank, arguably, since its inception. He's been the one that's like totally wowed the crowd, and that is why he's in here, I think, to do like more crazy shit. And with him and Evan Bourne in here, it should make for like quite an exciting match, I hope. But I certainly don't see him winning this. I mean, it would be nice. I think he deserves it, but he's just another guy that's like great in the ring and doesn't really connect like with the crowd, or like connect in many feuds with other wrestlers, basically, which is a shame. Matt Hardy now. Oh, Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy is one of these guys, like, a few years ago, I think he would have been great to be pushed to the main event, but in the last year or so, he's, like, totally lost a step, like, with his injuries and that, and I think that feud with Jeff, like, totally killed him. He still has a real dedicated following. He is a Hardy after all, and, I still like Matt Hardy. I'd love to see him win this, but I just don't think it's going to happen whatsoever. Which brings me to Christian Cage, or, well, Christian. I think out of all these guys, he'd be like one of the most believable to win this, and I think it's about bloody time they like just pulled the trigger and let him go to the main event scene. And plus with like Jericho and Edge in the world title situation on SmackDown, it'd be great for him to win it and like challenge them. I mean, there's going to be a draft in a month or so anyway, so he could feasibly get moved to SmackDown again. And even with that Money in the Bank briefcase, he's like could make that choice. The thing is, I don't see him being a main eventer on Raw whatsoever. He's another guy, like, where I just think, oh, WWE just don't really have the faith in him to thrust him to the main event straight away. But I think it'd just be such a good and logical thing for him to win this year, seeing the crowd were totally behind him last year to win the Money in the Bank. And I think that would have been good, but I think hopefully now is the time that Christian will get thrust up into the main event spot and take that Money in the Bank briefcase. Yeah, so my prediction at this moment, out of whittling all those down, is Christian, but there's also the slim chance in my mind that they could put it on Drew McIntyre if he's still going to be in it. Or they may surprise us and like suddenly put Kofi in it next week. Who knows? Another thing to consider is there is going to be a Money in the Bank pay-per-view in July, so there's always going to be that as well. So are they going to like, is the winner going to cash it in at this WrestleMania? Personally, I don't see it happening, but that could be a good surprise depending on who it is. But yeah, there's that to consider as well. What are your thoughts on this year's Money in the Bank? Cheers.